Hi and welcome back to my channel. I'm Tony, this is my workshop and I'm building another 1:6 scale Armortek tank. This time it is the Hetzer, the Jagdpanzer 38, and where we left off last time I'd fitted all the servos and all the bracketry that goes with the back of the glasses plate, and then we fitted the whole together. And of course, as I went over in the last video, there's a few little gaps and bits and pieces. I'm not worried about that. I'm fairly confident that when I get around to doing the mock welding, that all going to hide a multitude of sins. So in today's session I'm going to be doing the mudguards on the front and the back of the tank, and there's a toolbox that needs to go on top of the mudguard. But there was a couple of things I had to do ahead of that. One was to paint the underside of the mudguards because well, I've cleaned, primed and painted the underside of the mudguards in the same base color as the base of the tank, and the reason why that is because once these are on, onto the tank like so, you are not going to get the spray can underneath to get a coat of paint, where I'm concerned you won't get a good decent cover, and it's mild steel and it could end up oxidizing and rusting at some point in the future. So that's the reason why I've done that. And then also because of the issue on the front of the tank here, these mudguards, I had to just trim a small piece off. So I used my Dremel just to remove a very small piece of the mudguard. I've test fitted these and they fit perfectly now onto the front of the tank, and all the holes line up as they should. The only other thing I did ahead of this session was to, let me see, yeah, I've got the right one. I went ahead and there's two holes here. Now these two holes are to fit what the Armortek sends you as the jack block, which normally would bolt into position like so. But I've got an upgrade from Armorpacks on the jack block, and it's a beautifully detailed jack block with all the metal trims. I mean, you get additional metal trims with this, but it's this is so well detailed and so beautifully made. So just needs a bit of careful painting, and then when it's all painted, I'll just simply, what I'm going to do is I'll mask off an area here, so I'll expose the metal when it's painted, remove the masking tape, and then I will then glue this into position, and it's going to look amazing. But I wanted to fill these two holes, so they're all now set and ready to be rubbed down and painted. So when that's done, it will look incredible, I'm sure. So what I'll do in a moment is I will reset the camera, and then if I get time today as well, I'll start doing some track building, which is the long monotonous exercise that all these builds you have to undertake. I think there's 97 links each side of the tank. I've already started a small section, as you saw when I test fitted the idler wheel and the drive wheels and everything else, a sprocket, just to make sure the wheels all lined up. I'll just continue building that and then build the other side, because the plan is once the tracks are assembled and built, I'll install them on the tank, and I'll power up the tank, and then once the tank is powered up, I will also check the servos, because on the back of the glasses plate, I haven't tested them yet, but when it's all live and I test the servos, make sure they're all working, any little adjustments I need to make for the gun and the slew, I'll do that all ahead of doing the mock welding, because once it's mock welded, I won't be able to get this glasses plate off without destroying the work that I've done. So that's the plan. I will reset the camera and we'll get cracking. Right, so we're going to start this side of the tank. Ahead of starting, I've got this mudguard here ready to go on. I've filled the two holes, you can see that, the two holes here, they're nice and smooth, and I've also put a piece of masking tape on here, and the reason why I've done that is just that when I come to install the Armorpacks kit, I just want to be able to glue the back of that and then sit it directly on top of the mudguard like that, without that being there. I don't want to glue this to paint, so I want to glue it to raw metal, so that's the purpose of doing that. And I'm just going to install this, and you can see that I had to cut a piece out just to facilitate the step in the plate here. I'm still not happy about this, but I'm pretty confident that when this is all welded, it's going to disappear and it will look amazing. So let's start off, and I think the top ones are the sort of little M3 nuts, or sorry, bolts that go through. But before I do that, I will put a little bit of thread locker into the hole, because these things will, I know it's going into aluminium, but these will have a lot of vibration. And I'll pop a couple in this hole here. I have previously just test fitted these to make sure they fit, and they do. So this, oh, also, just so that I don't forget to tell you, this is a very sharp edge. So I'll show you the other one. This here, very sharp edge, too sharp for my liking, so I'd recommend that you rub that down. I've just put it on my little bench sander, and I've just taken the sharp edges off of that and any sharp abrasions on that, because you know, while you're handling this tank, you don't want to catch yourself on that. So I've done that on where is it, this side here, so that's nice and smooth. You can see that. Now we'll go ahead and install this. So the two fixings on the top are hex fittings, these little M3 hex fittings. So I'll just pop that there. Always awkward again when I'm on the camera, so I'll try not to block this with my hand. Just wind that in. Now there's a little slot in this, so they will move in and out. I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to push it at its extreme, and then that lines up on the bottom of the hull here with these fixings. I haven't put anything in tight just yet. Just want to make sure we're in, and then we can go around and tighten everything up. While I'm doing this, I just want to do a massive thanks to all of you guys that continue to support me. It's incredible, and I really look forward to engaging with you guys when I release a video. I really hope that I'm continuing to, you know, to do a good job on this. We'll get the right fixings, it would be good. And then these two fixings that go into the hull here, these are little butt fixings, so I can load that up on my driver. Like so. Pop these into the hole. Again, I'm not tightening things up too tight just yet. I'll do that when I've got it in position and I'm happy with the location of it. I'm going to just push that over as tight as I possibly can, and that's in now. So I'm just going to wind this down into position, nice and tight. What's good about this as well, I think it's going to go a long way to sort of help fix the base of the glacier plate into position. So that's that done. So what I'll do now is I'll just reposition the camera and we'll do the other side. Right, so I'm about ready to install this one, but before I do that, I just want to take that sharp edge off. So excuse me for a minute while I just take to my bench grinder. And that's it, just with its really sharp edge removed, and then obviously the underside is painted. So we'll do the same thing again. We'll just go along and pop, just get this to load up. Now, there's the thread locker in, a little bit too much. Right. So we've got a couple of hex fixings ready to go. Pop one of those through. I'll try and do this without blocking the camera. I'm sorry, my camera skills are diabolical. I get a bit carried away with the build, and sometimes I know I'll get in the shot, and I'm sorry about that. But it is so difficult to do this on camera. You know, hopefully I'm telling the story by using the film. Of course, there's always one that just doesn't want to. I guess what I should have done is tested these before I put them in. Make sure they go in all right, because as you know, I've had a few issues with just having to get my tap and die kit out. That'd be alright, I think. Just sort of I can use this to find its way through. Right. Again, camera on, it all goes wonky. Unbelievable. Let's just try that again. Hey, what? I'll put that to one side for a minute, and we'll do the easy bit. We'll load up these little button fixings. Get that one. Easy bit, of course. Oh God, the camera. I mean, I previously went ahead and installed these little flanges on top, on the front of the mudguard here, so I didn't think that you'd want to see that as such. Let's try and get you in now. Yeah, that's fine now. Nice and tight. Actually, what I should do is just knock that over a little bit so it's as close to the hull as possible. There we go, that's better. Just pushing that into place. And before I do anything else, I'll put the last of the button fixings down here. And I can see that, you know, obviously once these are on and I do the mock welding, the more I look at it, the more I think, yeah, I've done the right thing. Because obviously, as you saw last week, really important to make sure that the roof fits on as it's intended to. So that is that. That's both of those fitted. I'm still not going to fit the light just yet, but it will sit there. And what I'm going to do with that is I'm probably going to put underneath it, I'm probably going to glue a little nut on it once it's in position, just in case this ever gets knocked and wants to come off. But I'm going to do this last knock-ins when I've finished everything. I've tested the servos and hopefully then set the glasses plate in its final position. Well, it is in final position, but do the welding on it so that I don't have to worry about having to ever take it off, because if the servos are not working properly, I'm going to need to remove this. But you know, obviously I've put thread locker on this, so I'm really hoping that the servos work, because if they don't, all it means really is getting a hot air gun on these fixings, removing that, better than actually taking off the welding. But I'm still waiting for my receiver, which I had a receiver, but it's faulty, so I've ordered a replacement receiver from just an online model shop, and once that comes, I'll be able to plug in the or bind it with the radio set and start testing. We'll obviously get the batteries in and start testing, but there is a bit of a thing with the batteries on this which I will cover off nearer the time of, you know, when it's more appropriate. So that's it. I'm going to spin the tank round now and we'll do the rear mudguards. Right, so time to do the rear mudguards. So what I've done ahead of installing the rear mudguard on this side, I've just put the sort of the connecting cleat on, and there's this piece here that just gets bolted in from underneath here. So I'm not that bothered about these at this stage, because I will be able to get a brush in there and just get a bit of paint on these. So I'm just sort of letting you know that, you know, I'm glad that I've painted the underside of this. Not too concerned about these because I can get in and touch these with a brush. So this goes on this side, so the cleat's on. It's only because you know, I didn't think you'd be interested in see. It's literally just bolted into place with some M2.5 gauge bolts and little nuts, and then this little piece here, which I'm not completely sure what it is at this stage. I've just looked in my reference book. I cannot work out what it is, but I'm sure in the fullness of time I will work that out. But anyway, so this gets bolted into position like so, and there's a couple of bolts that go through underneath here, and as always, because of the angle and everything else, I'm sure it's going to be awkward. And then there's a couple of securing hex fixings that go on this end here to fix it into place. So we'll crack on now and install. And obviously, when this is installed, there's a toolbox, which is this piece of kit here, which gets bolted onto the top of that. So I thought I'd do that after I've got this, because I can actually easily get access underneath here for the fixings. So we'll go ahead now and we'll pop the first one in. So I'm going to put the furthest one in first, because that's the easiest one to grab hold of, and I'm going to try and do this without blocking too much of the camera. So I'm going to pop that in there like so. I'm just going to put a little bit of thread locker on that, because these things will move and vibrate around, and I'm just going to position that and try and find the hole. Says, hang on a minute, there we go, that's the hole, like so. And then I'm going to hold that into position, get a nut, feel for where the little bolt is, and I know I'm blocking the camera, but I'm sorry, and just try and get that wound on. There we go. So it's on. It's fairly loose, as you can see, all very loose, but it's not going to go anywhere as such. And now what I'll do is I'm going to put these two on the back here, because I'm pretty sure that is going to. Let's just try and test fit. I've got a longer threaded piece here that I'll just make sure it's easier for me to. Yeah, and the hole is there. It's no problem at all. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put the two little hex fixings in the front and at the back of this. But what I've got to do, I've got an M3, a longer M3 hex fixing here, and that's just making sure that I can find the hole. Excuse me. There it is there. Just want to make sure I can find the hole and whether that is going to wind into the hole. There we go. I'm only doing this so that I can just hold this in place, and it's a lot easier than fiddling around with smaller or shorter fittings. So that will come out in a moment, but that's just to hold that there while I then wind in. Now these are threaded, these holes are threaded, so I'm just double check that that is going, and I'm not putting any thread locker on this one because it is going into aluminium. I'm fairly confident that will hold. There we go, that's that. That's in now. Actually, what I will do is I'm just going to put a little dab of thread locker on that, and that will find its way around the thread and do its job. Just wipe the excess off of that. Now that that's in, I haven't tightened it up completely, but now that that's in, hopefully I can take this longer hex fixing out and put the smaller of the hex fixings in. Everything's so awkward and fiddly. Yeah, just, I don't know if you can see that. I'm just going to bend that so that that lifts up a little bit. Start winding that in. It's going in nicely. Just a little bit of thread locker on that. I wasn't going to put the thread locker on, but obviously it seems to be working fine. Let's just give that a bit of a wipe over. Now what we'll do is we'll put the other 6mm fixing in, and this is going to be really awkward. So I'm going to have to try and get a nut on this, but because of the angle. So I repositioned the camera just to show you how awkward this is. You can see that the back nut here is really awkward, so you can't physically get your hands in. So what I ended up doing is I magnetised my my pliers, and all you do, how you do that is you just rub them on the magnet or a magnet, and they magnetise very briefly. I held the nut in place and persevered, if you like, with the getting the screw in. So I've now got the bolt in. I'm just going to tighten that up. I'm just turning it. Sorry, I know I'm blocking the camera. I'm just holding that while I tighten this up from underneath. And that is it. So that's in there nice, not in the mudguards, nice and tight in there. Now what I can do is, I know it's not in camera shot, but I can now tighten up the two fixings, or the two hex fixings on the front of the tank. So that's done, and that is on. So what I'll do now is I'll reposition the camera yet again, and we'll put on the little toolbox. Just thought I'd show you the difficulty with the angles. Right, so time to just assemble a little toolbox that comes with the kit. So it's in two parts. You've got the main toolbox, and then you've got this lid, and this is just fixed on with a couple of hinges. And as before, when you put these hinges on, do not over tighten them. Give them a bit of play so that you don't bend the hinge, because it's brass and it's very delicate. So so what we'll do now is I'll just go ahead and show you how I'm going to do this. So awkward as anything, because this ridge here makes it really awkward. So I'm going to put a nut on the end of my finger, hold that in position like so, position the hinge. I'm just going to turn this so I can hold it with my thumb and forefinger. A little bit of thread locker on that, and then try and feel my way through to the nut on the other side, and it's fine, that's gone through. So that's the first one. Just don't want to tighten these up too much. You want a bit of play on them, not too much, that's probably too much. Just enough so that this hinge will fold back as we want it without damaging it. We do the same again. So we want little cap fixing, corresponding M2.5 gauge. So we'll just load the fixing up on my driver, dip it in a little bit of thread locker, nut on the end of my finger, try and line up the holes, and then just try and feel that way through, and that's actually going in all right. So that's them both on, like so. The next thing we're going to do is install the flap, and hopefully we won't have any problems with that. So we've got our bolt, our little nuts, and our little bolts, little button fixings. Let's see the best way to do this. So I'm going to dip this in a bit of thread locker, pop that through the hole into that, hold that like so, offer the nut up to it, and just gently feel our way through. Again, don't want to be too tight. I'm going to do one on this side now. all very delicate. Offer it through the hole into that, and just lay your driver down on the side. Position a nut on the back of that as before, and just again, don't over tighten this. So that's it. Without, obviously he's got a couple more fixings to go in. Be very careful with these little hinges because they are very, well, they are fragile. They're thin brass. And if you over tighten these, you need a bit of give on these hinges so that it don't put the so that they move on that rather than the, you know, putting pressure on the actual knuckle of the hinge itself. And the last one. Again, I'd say that this is extremely fiddly if you were to try and build this on the tank. Just need to offset that a little bit. Loosen that up a little bit. I don't want to put any pressure on the hinge at all. You can see it's binding a little bit, so just unspin that. It's getting better. It just needs a little bit of loosening off, I think, on that. Again, I'm just a bit of a perfectionist. I just want things to work as they should. That's better. A little bit happy with that. So that's your little toolbox. Made up. There doesn't seem to be a handle required for here, but you know, I think it's just one of these ones that you just lift up and what have you. So and there's a few, it's a bit gappy. It's a little bit gappy. I don't know if you can see that on the camera. So I might just put a bit of heat on that and just put, you know, bend these back in so that they shut up a bit better than that, because again, being a bit of a perfectionist, I don't like the look of that. So I think that's what needs to happen. Anyway, we'll do a little bit of work on that, and then I'll come back and we'll bolt it onto the mudguard. Right, so now I'm going to install the toolbox. So the toolbox positions itself more or less there. So I've already got a bit of thread locker on my fixing, so I'm going to hold that fixing, the first one, in. In fact, what I'm going to do is load it up on my driver. Sorry, it will fit on there. Hold that position like that, drop the toolbox into place, and using my pliers, just try and, sorry, I know my hand's in the way. That's the first one on. Just going to wind that in a bit more. Again, it's a little bit awkward when I'm trying to do this on the camera, but hopefully you're getting the gist of it. Almost there, and then just position that so that lines up with that hole. And we have one more fixing to go in, hold it into place. A little bit more tricky this one because it's just sitting above the idler wheel, but I'm hoping we can, there we go, just hold that. corresponding nut on the end of my pliers, still magnetised. All we want to do is just get the first bite on it. And then we're in. So that's in. Just needs a little bit of tightening up. It's just awkward where the idler wheel is on the angle of that. I can see it turning nicely. And that is it. That's the toolbox installed. So I'm just going to pop that like that for now. So that's that. So the other mudguard is where we install the jack. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll put on the jack cleats and clamps on the mudguard, which is the other side here. This one, that'll go on the other side. I have already, I don't know if you can see that on the camera, I've already taken the sharp edges off here and on here. It's just that, you know, it's just in case if you're handling this or pushing this model around, and if you were to inadvertently sort of catch your hand on here, it will be really sharp. So I've just used my bench sander just to round that off. Anyway, so what we do is I will turn the tank round and we'll start mounting up everything on this mudguard and get the jack cleats on and then install this one. Right, so before we install this mudguard, I've already gone and put the cleat on here. Again, because it's really straightforward, just a bolt on. We have to put a couple of the jack clamps on, and there's 2 holes here to locate each one of those. And the jack clamps are made up of a mount like so, and the first part of the clamp and the main sort of the hinged element of it, which allows it to hinge and give you access to lock the clamp in place, and various different fixings which we'll go through. So what will happen, well, so I've just noticed on here, I'm not sure if the camera picks that up or not, but where the CNC machine's gone through and drilled, there's a little bit of spoil, if you like, that needs to be removed, and that's going to be very simply done by just a really small little file. I'm just going to smooth that off. All part of the joys of building one of these models, and that's that. And then I'm just going to clean up the inside, cleaning up the inside of thisy, and just to get the residue off of that from the machining. So that's that. So we'll put that to one side for now, and we've got this bracket here, which is made up of 2 parts and a pin. Now the easiest way to do these, I find, is to, if I zoom in, that's what I'm going to try and zoom in, so please forgive my camera work, is I position it sort of near the edge of my bench or away from that. I position the other part of that inside, make sure that these fit nice and snug. Nice, not tight, because you want this to move reasonably freely, but you don't want it to be flapping around loose. Just make sure that they fit, and they do. Position that inside, or align the holes as best you can. Take your pin and just, it's got a sort of small radius edge of it. Position that loosely where that should go, like that, and then just using the acrylic side of my little mallet, just gently tapping it through until it's in, and then we just need to, and you'll feel that when you know you've located the radial part of the pin, you'll feel this just lock into that. And now that's, I don't know if you can see that, but that's now halfway in to this hinge here. And then just hammer that home. There's no need for glue or thread locker on that, and that's your little jack clamp operating as it should. So that's that part. Now we need to bolt this to this mount, if you like, and we'll do that very well. I'll go and get the fixings for that, and we'll get on to that straight away. Right, so I've got all my fixings for this. We've got 2 fixing holes here. We're going to do this away from the tank because, again, I think it'd be all right to, it'd be awkward to put this on the tank. Now you've got this mount here, which basically goes through onto that, and you have your clamp that goes through onto the top of this. So first things first, what we need to do is thread this longer fixing, which is this beautiful, it's got this beautiful brass wing nut on the end of it, so beautifully and delicately made. Now this goes through the underside of that, very long there, and then the idea is that that clamps over that. It will go through like so, and then you wind your brass wing nut into place. So just pop that out. But what I do is, because obviously when this is in and this is then on top of this mount like that, you're never going to be able to get to the underside of that, and what you don't want is this thing spinning around when you're trying to wind the wing nut on, just in case you, well, obviously when you built these and installed them on the tank, I always put them down into place without the jack, and then when I want to put the jack on, when it's all finished and painted, I just spin them off, and what I don't want is this thing spinning around. So what I do with that is I just pop a little bit of thread locker on the underside of that, and that just helps it secure this in place. So that goes to the underside of that. What I've got to do is make sure that I don't get any thread locker on the threaded part at all, because we don't want that sticking. And then that's now ready to go onto this. So that goes onto that. Then you have this 16mm long countersink fitting which goes through. How about we do that first? Through into that, then through this. Actually, we want a nut as well. Yes, there's one of my nuts. So this is awkward. Actually, do you know what? I think it says it shows a nut, but I don't think you need it. I'm going to try and do this without the nut, because that is so awkward, and I don't think it's required, because once that is all assembled like that, this then goes through the top of the mudguard. Awkward. I'm going to turn this over. Maybe you can. Get my tool ready. Get the right gauge, which is that one, I believe. Yes. So awkward. That's that one. Now hold that upside down for now. Going to position that like so. I'll put a little bit of thread locker on the back of that. Actually, excessive thread locker in that case. And then just spin this nut onto that, and then using one of my socket, just going to tighten that up as much as I possibly can. Probably a bit too much. Snaking it off a bit. Snaking it off a bit more. So that needs to sit on top of that. Apologies. that's better. Holding it all in. Now we can get that on there. I'm just going to rotate that round into the position it should be, which is in that position there. I'm going to just use my pliers to align that. Sorry, just getting that aligned like that. Just getting that reasonably in line. Tightening that up. Now I have not put the nut on here, and I just don't think you need it, and frankly I don't have the patience to mess around sort of trying to get that on when I don't think it's actually necessary. So that is the first of the clamps. I'll turn this around so you can see. That's the first of the clamps there. I just want to, not happy with the alignment of that. That's it, that's better. And then as a temporary, because I don't want to lose these, just spin that little brass butterfly fixing on. It will go on. And that's the first of the two clamps on, and that's good enough. I don't think you need that nut. It's not going to come undone. It's got thread locker on it, and it's exactly pretty much as they show it. So when you're ready for when the jack needs to go on, you simply just unwind your wing nut, lift up your flap, and the jack sits on there. Now I haven't test fitted the jack, but I'm not bothered about that. I'm pretty sure it'll fit, and if it doesn't, I'll make it fit. So that's the first of the two. So we'll go through the whole exercise again. So I'll just take that brass wing nut. These are beautifully made, these things. Pop just a bit of thread lock around that collar. I'll do it this way this time. Pop that through like that. Move that out of the way for now. And then we've got the 16mm fixing that goes through into that. Oh, forgot to do that. Just want to clean this up. That goes through that. Hopefully into that hole, and it does. We want to get our tool ready, and it goes in the same kind of alignment as the previous one. There we go. Pop that like that. Bit of thread locker on it, and there's a nut here somewhere, and there it is. Just holding it from the, tightening that up ever so much, a little bit, getting that just to come round a bit, and use my pliers just to straighten that up. Nice and tight. Again, just getting the pliers just to try and align that. And that is that. Again, just a little brass ring nut. Well, I just love those, the way they're made. And that is it. So spin it around. So that's your two jack clamps installed. Now we've got to go through and install the mudguard as before. Tricky as you like, but I'll crack on with that right now. Right, so I've got the fixings on the back of this now. I didn't show you that because you've seen it already. So it's just really the sort of the final two fixings that go in the back here, and you just need to position this in a way that you can put your hand on here and hold it in the position. Again, what I did last time is this longer fixing, and all I'm using that for really is just to sort of secure that in place to allow me to put the smaller fixing in, because it's a little bit fiddlier. So I've got the smaller fixing here. I'm just going to put a little bit of thread locker on that. Try and find the hole. There it is there. And then just using that to wind that in. And you can see that it's actually going nicely tight against the hole. That's that. We can take this one out now. As before. Now we can put the smaller one in. Just want to try and get it to take a bite, and it has. So that's that, in nice jack clamps in place. I'm not worried about the metal showing against the paint, because all this needs to be repainted and retouched up. The reason why I did this originally is just that there's some of the parts I will not be able to get to, so not bothered about that. That'll be picked up and when we do the final paint scheme. So that's it. That's the mudguards done. Actually, just before we finished, I've just realised that this edge is a really sharp edge. I've taken the sharp edge off here and here, but now I'm just going to run my mini file across that, because that is a very sharp edge. And there's nothing else that goes on the back of this. So two reasons I'm doing this. One is that it's sharp and I don't want to cut myself on it, and two, really difficult for paint to key onto that sort of sharp edge. So I'll do this on both sides. That's better. Yeah, that's better. Yeah, that's much better. Don't want to get yourself actually, while I'm doing that, I'm just going to take the sharp edges off this exhaust. What you don't want to do is inadvertently damage yourself or cut yourself. You won't see this obviously with the exhaust on it, but it I keep catching myself on this. That all done. Really pleased with that. So yeah, anyway, that is the mudguards finished. I'll go and I'll use the file on the other side in a minute, and I'll be back to camera. Well, that's it for today's session. It was all about the mudguards, the front mudguards and the rear mudguards, sorry. And having installed them now with a few of the accessories, it really is starting to transform this wonderful little Hetzer into something incredible. It just takes a different form. Just a few things, just a little details in the mudguards going on has really elevated the look and feel of this tank. Really enjoyed it. Really straightforward, no real challenges today. A little bit of fettling, but that's normal. So if you're building one of these, just follow the instructions that Armortek very carefully put together. You will not go wrong, and again, it's just patience and time. So if you've enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe. I've got a long way to go on this particular build and lots of plans in the future. And I'll sign off by saying I'm Tony. I absolutely love these tanks. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you real soon.